Hey guys, I'm back. Well, we're back this week with the story of a brief but pungent exchange that happened between me and a couple of other women at the grocery store yesterday. If you are new here, my name is Jen, and this is my multi-purpose service dog named Buddy. Buddy, drop. Thank you. Good boy. I have Buddy for a couple of different reasons, mostly to alert and respond to migraines, which is what he's doing now. Thank you. Good check. Wow. Gross. And he also alerts and responds when I faint. So yesterday, Buddy and I went to the grocery store. Nothing new. And I was taking 5 ever. Nothing new. You're so cute. A couple of things to let you know about my fainting. Basically, the longer I'm standing up, the more likely it is that I'm going to faint. There's only a certain amount of time that I actually can be standing up. And in general, walking around makes it so that I can be vertical longer. So when I'm at the grocery store, if I'm walking around, I'm usually okay. But if I stop for a while and I'm looking at stuff, that's when I tend to get a little bit lightheaded. So I was in the bread aisle and I was taking literally forever because my husband wanted brioche and I could only find one, and so I was just there forever. At a certain point, Buddy sort of licked my hand a little bit, signifying that things were starting to happen, but there was nothing really too serious going on. And if you didn't watch last week's video, that probably sounds really weird, but Buddy will lick more or less vigorously based on how screwed I am, and I did that last week. So make sure you check out that video, the preparing to faint video, if you want a demonstration of him actually doing that. But anyway, he gave me a little baby faint alert, so I was like, okay, I should probably crouch down at this point. So I was crouched, I'm reading about English muffins and stuff, and I noticed out of the corner of my eye, whenever I looked over at Buddy, that there was a woman in one of those electric wheelchair things that the grocery store supplies, and she was turned all the way back, just staring at me. For the sake of telling you the story, I'm going to call this woman older. I will introduce you to younger later. So I'm crouched down with Buddy, I'm reading right here, but every time I look over at Buddy, the lady's right there looking back at me. And mind you, it's even creepier because everybody's wearing masks right now. So it was just very uncomfortable. And especially uncomfortable when I felt like there was a possibility that I might be having an episode soon, which is what Buddy told me. Yeah, I'm talking about you. Now, as a service dog handler, I am 100% used to getting stared at the entire time. Most of the people that you walk by comment on how pretty the dog is or want to ask questions about him, but definitely stares and glances are something that I'm 100% used to. The issue with this lady arose because I was a little bit symptomatic and it was just incessant. It was probably a good 2 minutes that she was just staring at us. Now, I was just sort of wishing that the staring would stop and banking on the fact that if I waited long enough, it would, but it didn't. And I started to feel really uncomfortable, again, just because of how blatant it was and the masks and everything. So this was the 1 time out of 10 that I actually called her out for staring at me for a bit too long. I said, "Excuse me, could you please not stare at us?" And this is where Younger came in. Younger was standing in between me and Older, but was facing me. So there's no way that she could have even seen Older behind her, so I don't know why she said this, but she immediately yelled at me when I said that and said, "She wasn't staring!" And at the same time-ish, Older, back here in the wheelchair, goes, "I was just talking about how beautiful your dog is. I wasn't staring. I was just admiring how beautiful it was." So, both of them, right off the bat, they're like, pfft. And I usually don't say anything. It took a really long time for me to get to the point where I decided I was going to say something. So the thing that I said wasn't reactionary. It wasn't hostile. It was a very, timid, I feel awkward. I think I even said, that it's awkward or it feels a little bit uncomfortable to be watched. And sometimes people do say I wasn't, and I'm like, okay, but they were straight yelling at me. I was like, whoa. This of course catches the attention of the 4 or 5 other people who were also in the aisle with us. Now we have this crowd of people watching. I'm crouched with the dog and these 2 girls are yelling at me that they're not paying attention to me and my dog. And I was just like, stay calm. We're not gonna freak out. We're just gonna explain that it's a little bit awkward, it's a little uncomfortable. Like, again, I had time, since I was the one who initiated the conversation, I had time to think this over in my head. I was like, I'm sorry, it's just that I get looked at a lot just because I have this disability, and it feels a little bit uncomfortable sometimes when I feel like I'm just being watched for a while. And because I didn't want things to escalate or get weird, I kind of just picked the bread that I was holding and I went over to where my cart was so that I could kind of move on with it. Create some distance, just keep the ball rolling, not make this into an altercation, you know? Buddy is just doing great through all this, by the way. He's paying attention to me. We're weaving around through all these people. He's not sneaking sniffs at any of the bread. I was like super impressed with Buddy. He was on it yesterday. And I'm really proud that he didn't like get aggressive towards people that were yelling at me. He never has. Like, I have no reason to believe that he would, but it's reassuring when the dog behaves in a good way. Anyway, Buddy and I are heading back to our cart, and Younger goes, well, at least you're lucky because you get to have your dog. And guys, the number of times that I've heard this would astound you. And then I said, there's nothing lucky about having a disability. And she said, f off. And Younger and Older left the aisle. I said nothing to that. Zero, nada, zip. We have passed the point of logic. I knew that they were quick to anger. I was not expecting someone to yell f off at me in the grocery store when I really only asked them to not stare, and then tried to clarify politely that it's not very lucky to need a service dog to go to the store. Yes, there is an argument to be made that I didn't need to say anything to the woman who was staring at me. After all, is there any harm in that? But at the same time, as a disabled person, I feel very awkward when people are staring at my mobility aid. I have made the comparison before that when somebody has a prosthetic, it's rude to stare because that's their difference. That's what makes them unique. And the polite thing to do is to not make them feel like they're an outsider for it. But unfortunately, I feel like service dog handlers don't get that kind of respect. We sort of don't get privacy. So I wanted to share this story, and honestly, I just wanted to get on YouTube in general to be a contrast to those aggressive service dog handlers that you see that are so fed up with the public that they have become mean in return. And unfortunately, I wasn't filming, so I'm not able to show it to you, but I'm hoping that telling you guys this story will help clear up some of the big misconceptions about people with disabilities. For example, me. I don't seem like I have a disability at all. If I have a disability, it doesn't seem like it's a very disabling one. But that's absolutely not true. And that feeds into this myth that you're so lucky if you get to have a service dog with you everywhere. It's not like that at all. Service dog handlers love their dogs as if they're pets. But that said, when the dog is on duty and we're trying to do a grocery trip, which is like sort of a high-risk situation for someone like me, I always lose my train of thought. Anyway, when Buddy is on duty, it's a very different situation. I look at him completely differently, and I wish that the public would look at him differently too. When he's on duty, he's a mobility aid. He's an alert dog. He's my blood monitor. That dog becomes medical equipment. Medical equipment that I still love and care tenderly for, but medical equipment nonetheless. And it doesn't make me mad that the public doesn't realize this. There's absolutely no reason why the public should realize this. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense. What movie was that from? One of the best movies of all time. That's what movie. Anyway, where was I? As handlers, we really can't blame the public for not knowing this. It's not something that's very straightforward or makes a lot of logical sense, unless somebody who's actually in that position makes that comparison for you. So, bringing it full circle, that's why I'm here right now. That's why I thought it was really important for me to share this story. I do not deserve to be made uncomfortable when I'm in public with a medically necessary dog. I think that the world would be a much better place if we truly tried to put ourselves in other people's shoes, and not only that, but realize that we actually have no idea what their shoes are like, even if we're trying. You cannot judge a book by its cover. You have no idea what that handler is going through, and that actually goes for literally any other person at the store, because some days I don't bring my service dog, and if I don't have him, that doesn't mean I'm suddenly not a disabled person. I'm not saying go around and like pretend everyone's disabled just in case, like that would be nuts, but just know that sometimes people are going through stuff that you don't know what they're going through. Maybe younger and older were yelling at me because they were arguing with each other and they were just taking it out on me and I made them feel uncomfortable and they were taken off guard. I don't know. And obviously this message applies to, wow, my face is like doing weird things because my migraine's coming. Do you see my single-sided facial droop is starting to come in with the migraine? Woohoo. And obviously this message applies to everyone, but especially service dog handlers. If someone is mistreating you or if you don't like the way something is going, try to be understanding of that. We need to put ourselves in their shoes just as much as we're asking them to do for us. To do that for us. And I'm going to bring this full circle a second time. This is why I have emotionally come to terms with what happened. I'm really proud that I left that exchange being like, yeah, I have no regrets. I was a kind person. I was exactly the person that I would have wanted myself to be in that moment. And I'm really, really proud of that. It's a super weird thing to brag about on here, but it's a milestone that I've been wanting to reach as a service dog handler. I've been wanting to get better at dealing with the public and at keeping my cool when stuff like this happens. And while I've never had anything this explosive happen while I was in public, I have had a lot of unfortunate times when I felt like I got frustrated or I was maybe a little sarcastic and I left the exchange feeling guilty because I wasn't being the person that I was expecting them to be. So I think we should all try to follow the golden rule when it comes to this. Because straight up, I didn't deserve to be treated that way. And she wouldn't have deserved it if I treated her that way right back. I've chalked it up to, just that this is one of the unfortunate sides of having an invisible disability. One of the sad truths about having a service dog. People do treat you differently. Hopefully this all makes sense and hopefully I got out everything that I set to get out, but I've got to go have a migraine. I'm starting to feel a little bit loopy. Give it a thumbs up, make sure that you subscribe, and I'll see you guys next week. Do you guys want to say bye to Buddy? Buddy's asleep behind the camera. Hi, Buddy. Say bye. See you next week.